Bernatovich. So welcome. Better World Day 2021 is very honored to have John Bernatovich, founder of Willery and an expert on leveraging human resources to help companies and organizations make people have the best experience in recruitment and retention. John is connected to John through the Cleveland chapter of the Society of Human Resource Management, where John also chairs the Committee on Human Resources and Technology. John is an excellent speaker, deeply committed to leveraging his expertise and his company to help nonprofit organizations. You'll hear about those. We're excited about that. And to present a philosophy of how to leverage human resources technology in a novel and effective way. So with that, I turn it over to you, John, and thank you again for being here this evening.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see you. Todd, if you wouldn't mind giving me the opportunity to share my screen, that'd be awesome. I need that enabled. While he's doing that, there is a tremendous amount of synergy here tonight. I've got my orange shirt on for my Browns support, as well as for Better World Day. So Todd and Mark reminded me of that. So thank you very much. And tonight is the 5th anniversary or 5th event of Better World Day. And the quarterback for the Cleveland Browns that's starting tonight is not number 6, it's number 5, Case Keenum. So I feel like my mom's watching over us. She was big into feng shui and all these things lining up, and the stars are coming together. So I just wanted to thank everyone for the opportunity to share a little bit about my story and what it is that I'm doing and the work that our firm provides at Willery. And I really appreciate the opportunity to do this. And so that is me dancing on the screen. I will start with this. First, thank you so much to Todd and Mark for their support. And I wanted to make sure that all of us, one second, go back one slide so you don't see me dancing the whole time. So the title of my presentation is Empowering People to Transform HR Technology. And so my life's purpose is to make an impact. Everything I do in my business, in my personal life, in my spiritual life is to make an impact and to make the world a better place. So when Todd was kind enough to invite me to present, I couldn't think of a better way to spend a Thursday evening. And I appreciate all of you taking time out of your busy personal and professional schedules to join us today. My unique platform that I get to share from a business standpoint is human resources and payroll and the technology that supports that. Our firm, Willery, provides people-related support in HR, payroll, and technology. And then we also provide consulting services that do client-side technology-related support around HR and payroll systems specific to selection, implementation, and optimization. So I've had a front seat view of some really unique things that were done well and not so well. And I look forward to sharing some of those experiences. You'll see my email address is on underneath my picture here and my screen. So john@willery.com. I do actually have a desk phone still. So cell phone and desk phone. I know I'm somewhat of a dinosaur on that. And then I also host the HR Like a Boss podcast, which we'll share a little bit about that in a moment. But I would love, and Todd, I might need your help, or Mark, to shout out, because I don't know if I'll be able to see the comments, but in this unique pandemic world that we're living in that continues to keep going despite our desires for it to go away, I want to find out how everyone is feeling. So on a scale of 1 to 10, or any word that comes to mind from amazing to terrible to anything in between, please write in the comments how you are feeling at this moment. And Todd, as they come in, if you wouldn't mind just sharing those, because I unfortunately can't see those at the time.
Will do.
Thank you.
We got a 9.5, doing pretty good. An 8, optimistic. 9, tired. Definitely.
All
1
right.
about the Browns, 10 otherwise.
Gosh, yeah. Is it gone that south that quick? In the course of 1 week, we went from he or she went from an 8 to a 1. Fascinating how that works. So I will share real quick. I'm nervous And I can't say that I'm nervous about this presentation because I feel very comfortable and blessed to be with you all today, but I am a huge and avid Browns fan, and I'm just not sure what's going to happen tonight. I don't put, my life doesn't depend on it, but for about 3 hours, I get immersed into it. So I have no idea what's going to happen. It's kind of like going to see a movie that you have no idea what it's supposed to be like. And you have a friend in it that maybe is going to perform well or not. So to that point, one of the key reasons why I bring that question up is that there's a huge range of emotions and feelings that we have in our community. What does this have to do with HR technology? Well, people are the main engine behind HR technology. They're the ones that develop it. They're the ones that implement it. They're the ones that service it. They're the ones that utilize it. They're the ones that optimize it. And if we don't have ourselves in the right mindset and our well-being isn't in the right spot, then you're going to have a hard time leveraging anything, let alone technology. So this is absolutely the best book I've ever read on emotional intelligence. I follow and am friends with Todd Birch. He's a big reminder of books to put online and through social media. I know we've debated a few of those virtually. This is a fantastic book. Mark is a great educator, and he lives, breathes this whole thing in emotional intelligence, and it's fantastic. I would highly recommend it. So speaking of books, I literally just finished, and I've been getting some pictures from people that received the advanced reader copy of the original manuscript of HR Like a Boss. It will be published probably in the summer or fall of 2022 at the pace we're going right now. And you can use that link, Willery.com/HRLAB, to register for updates and to pre-order the book. But doing HR Like a Boss to me is a standout business person first that just so happens to do an amazingly awesome job connecting their people to their business and the purpose of that organization while making a positive impact on the community. And the 5 pillars of the book are centered around thinking differently, being different, being better, so aligned with that, taking action and making an impact. And in the leveraging technology is in the Be Different chapter, and that's the foundation for my presentation today. And in most cases, and especially in nonprofits, I have seen some unique examples of organizations not leveraging technology. And my presentation covers some basics for you to be able to make that difference inside of your organization, taking very simple steps, one at a time, in order to make your employees and the staff that works at your organization, making those employees' lives better and making the experience easier. To me, humans love the path of least resistance, and technology should make our lives easier, not harder, and especially if we're doing it from an HR tech standpoint. So to give you a little insight into the 10 stages of going from strategy to transformation, here they are, and I'm going to get right into it. So the very first one is to strategize. For anyone that's in business or is trying to make a difference in your life or in your professional career aspiration, you have to start out with strategy. You must look at the end in mind. You always must take that perspective first. So as we begin our journey and trying to figure out a way to transform the way we use HR technology, we must first stop and say, where am I at today and where do I want to go? And so in that strategy, we look to define those strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You've heard that SWOT analysis before. It is incredibly valuable. I just recently learned through a business operating system called Scaling Up that you should have 2 strengths and 2 weaknesses, not 10 and 20. Just your 2 the things that are in the fabric of your business and the weaknesses that you have that you just can't see yourselves getting rid of. And so as you look at that from a strategy standpoint, look at many of you, I'm sure, are working virtually and haven't been back in your office, or if you were, it looks like this, almost like a ghost town. Things are so radically different. Don't limit yourself with what you currently have, because things are changing constantly from a technology standpoint, and we must embrace that change. So the next step, once we have a strategy in place, is to look under the hood with what I'll call an intense discovery. And I remember as a kid, my mom would ask me to clean up my dirty room, and I found out as quickly as I started to do that, my room got a heck of a lot dirtier before it got clean. And in the assessment process, you cannot be afraid of the mess. You have to embrace it and understand that it's part of your journey. And it helps to get outside perspective. Now, I have to admit, I'm a little bit biased because my firm provides that outside perspective and we offer support to that. But one thing to consider about outsiders that don't work within your company is they don't care about the things that have always been done a certain way or who made the decision to implement whatever technology. And their main objective is to help you make those things work better and more effectively. And it's interesting to look also too at the current and future state. And so I'll tell a quick story. I know Mark and Todd were adamant about me sharing some experiences we had. Some of you may know the organization Koinonia Homes. It has been called K Homes for me until I figured out how to pronounce the name, but it, as I understand it, it means welcome. And it's a very wonderful organization, about 600 employees headquartered in Independence. And we completed an exercise with their leadership team around that current and future state. And the moment that they saw the visual, the actual picture drawn of what our current systems look like, they fast-tracked a project to evaluate and select and then implement a new HR technology because they were not leveraging that tool and it was becoming a barrier for the well-being of their organization and their employees. So once they and other clients and you have that assessment completed and you can see the before and after, you've got to come up with a plan. And I absolutely love this quote because it's so true. And by going through that planning process, you can legitimatize or you can actually throw away the idea because of timing, resources, funding, and the list goes on. If you don't plan things out and document the steps you have to take and the resources that are going to be involved, then you're going to get yourself in a world of hurt. And then from there, we want to look to how do we go about planning what you're doing, right? The devil is in the details. I've always noticed in these planning sessions that organizations have that they sometimes forget about the fact that the devil is in these details, these priorities, the timing, the resources that we have, the modules we want to deploy, self-service, do we want to put that in, change management, which is always overlooked when you implement any technology, especially HR. Just think about for a second, one day you don't announce to your organization that you're going to a new HR technology system and service provider, and your employee looks at their direct deposit and they're used to seeing XYZ service provider deliver the funds, and then some new company comes in and delivers those. And all of a sudden it's off by a couple pennies than what they're normally used to getting. It's those small things make a big difference in effectively implementing and announcing change within your organization. So we cannot overlook those details. And here's a very interesting story, one that at the time while I was there, it put such a smile on my face because it was so simple, but so paramountly important. About 5 years ago, we were asked to help the JCC of Pittsburgh implement a new HR technology system. And to be candid with you, they had failed the 2 times before we arrived. And I'm not suggesting we were the only reason why they had success the 3rd time around. We got some really good things and momentum on our side compared to the first 2 experiences. But in our very first planning session, I'll never forget it, sitting there with our project manager and their executive leadership and their team members, we started going through their timeline and when they wanted to implement the system and start it, and when were we going to do data conversion, and when we were going to start doing the exercises of testing and paralleling. And right when we got to paralleling, we got to an interesting time on the Jewish calendar. And as it turns out, during the most critical part of their parallel testing was during one of the key holidays that they were celebrating in the Jewish faith. And as it turns out, they all looked around and said, I'm not working that day, and I'm not working that day. And around the room they went, and I said, well, it looks like we're pushing back your go live. And they all said, you're kidding me. We cannot do this. I said, well, then somebody needs to show up to do the parallel testing for those few days. It's paramountly important. So we decided to push it back by a quarter, and they had more time. They could celebrate those wonderful experiences with their family and friends. And we had a successful go live. So that one simple thing of saying, hey, imagine they would have started, they would have been down this path, and all of a sudden someone would have realized, hey, wait a second, next week we're all going to be out. What are we going to do? And that's that simple thing of looking at time, resources, the confinement that you have within it becomes really, really important in your planning stages. Next is training. I cannot tell you how often I hear from clients, that they are not satisfied with their current HR technology, one of the first questions I ask them is, are you trained and has your team gone through the training made available by your provider? And I get these sheepish looks of no, right? The number one way you want to be unhappy with your current technology, and for that matter, any other technology, is to not take advantage of the training that you have. And my dad would always tell me that if it was really important to you, you would make time for it. And I always think of those things when I make excuses as to why I don't do something. And then I really look to myself, is it really that important? And getting trained on your HR technology is a really critical facet. And then you want to make sure that you take that time and you implement it. And then we look to our community to be able to find others, just like today in this presentation and time together that we have, to get a chance to have fellowship and learn from others that have similar experiences. That these technology providers do a great job in connecting the user base so you can share stories and experiences with each other and take advantage of those nuggets of intel that maybe one client has that the next nonprofit customer might need as well. So, all right, so you cannot optimize and you cannot transform until we have gotten to this step of stabilizing the system that we're currently on. We have to have sound footing. I look at this in the analogy of building a new home. You always start with the foundation. And in the foundation of HR and payroll is that compliance, payroll, time, and benefits. If those four systems and the modules within them are not effectively implemented and running smoothly, then you're not going to be able to effectively transform or even simply optimize the system that you're on. So we got to look at just that stabilization as a paramount step in your ability to transform and better leverage your technology. Next is standardize, and we're about 70% of the way there. So stick with me. I look forward to more chatting and discussion at the end, and I appreciate, again, the opportunity to share these simple steps, which are oftentimes overlooked, or more often than not, companies just don't have the time to do it. And standardization is the primary one that I see. It takes a tremendous amount of time, energy, and effort, and organizations do not make that time. It's a difficult step and one that is avoided time and time again. And so the unwillingness to standardize will prevent your organization from scaling. It will also make you more inefficient. If you want to be efficient and grow and spend less time working within your system and your processes, they must be standardized. I think of things like how we pay people, what the time collection rules are. One that I hear most commonly is we have 14 different pay dates and various period endings. Why do you have those? Well, that's just the way that it's always been. And that is not an answer that I really like. So we challenge that time and again. Okay, so now we've got a stable, standardized system. That took us a long time. In most organizations, frankly, I see about 10% of them that are in a position to truly optimize the use of their system. So they're ready to make a real difference. They're ready to add functionality and features within their application to make their life easier. And frankly, more often than not, when you buy new technology, you're buying it because of this advanced system capability or functionality within the system. You're not in the HR technology world. You're not buying it because of its core HR or payroll processing or time entry. It's for the other things like workflow development, making sure that you have things within the reporting tool, how you're leveraging things like artificial intelligence. So you buy technology based upon the advancement that you think you can take your company to. And more often than not, you just implement the same thing and you're paying a different vendor, maybe slightly more, and you're that much more aggravated. So in that optimization, we have to make sure that you're, in my opinion, leveraging and looking back at that strategy. Let's make sure the things that we're going to be implementing after we stabilize the system, it lines up with the strategic vision that we have as an organization. And we don't want to underestimate the time that it's going to take for your resources to do this. This is another reason organizations are so busy paying people, trying to recruit talent, trying to get those that are onboarding, effectively onboarded, and they just don't have time to take their system to the next level. And oftentimes they might need support to do that. And then this one's really important to me. There's three left. And having worked at ADP, the largest payroll provider in the world, I often saw this kind of put up your dukes. I'm ready to fight. I'm frustrated with the way things are going right now. And I'm going to steal a line from probably my favorite character in Seinfeld, George Costanza. You know, when he broke up with one of his girlfriends, he used the "it's not you, it's me" excuse, right? And very rarely do I ever hear a client say, you know what, things with our partner and our vendor are not going well, and it's our fault. Often it's their fault. It's the vendor's fault. They sold us a bill of goods, or they didn't have the right resource to help us implement, or, you know what, I can't get a hold of the right resource to be able to fix this issue, or I don't like their ticketing system they make me go through. I just want to call someone. It ends up being the vendor's fault. And that's a dangerous way to develop a relationship. And to me, you have to develop that relationship with your partner, with the executive team that's at that organization that you've decided to develop a long-standing relationship with, investing in their tech. So the executives, their day-to-day operational folks, and their service folks. And you know what, honestly, if the service folks change consistently for you, let's just be okay with that, because that's the nature of the beast. It's not the same service provider you might have had experience with 20 years ago. The service team you're going to get is going to be a triage. They're going to support you. And the folks that are on that phone, more often than not, are doing the best they possibly can. I recently went to my favorite bagel and donut shop in Copley, and on the door it said, "Please be kind to our employees. We're short-staffed and we appreciate your understanding," right? So think about that too, when the next time you're frustrated talking to your technology provider, and just say, maybe that person's having a bad day, or maybe they've had a lot of issues that have come in because of the service challenges. Let's just understand where they're coming from. How do we get to end a job on what we're doing, and develop those executive relationships so that when you need to get the support from the executive team or to do something different with that technology, you have that relationship established. And more often than not, the executives will stay longer than you might have a relationship with your service rep. All right, here's the least sexy part. Sorry to use that word, but it goes so true within the idea of documenting. Writing down your processes is one of the most effective ways for you to scale and mitigate your risk. And really, the reason why I suggest this is that I cannot tell you, in my career, having done staffing and technology in the space of payroll, how many times I've had CFOs call me and say, "Hey, John, I got some really bad news and I need your help." I'm like, "Okay, what's going on?" And it's the same story almost every single time. My payroll manager just gave her notice, and my team came into my office and said, "Well, John, you're the only one that knows how to process payroll." And after I got him out of the room and I went to the bathroom, I looked myself in the mirror and said, "I don't know how to do payroll." And I realized within 2 weeks, I could not be paying my employees effectively, and I can't do that. So having an effective and simple documentation plan around things like payroll or open enrollment, or how you onboard or offboard an employee, becomes a really important factor. And it allows you to not be concerned about those events that take place. Maybe somebody wins the lottery one day. Your payroll manager wins the lottery. Couldn't be happier for him or her for doing that. Or let's say they have turnover, or they have an unexpected event that takes place with a loved one or family member. You do not want to be caught there not understanding a critical aspect of your business and how it's done. So this kind of unsexy documentation is so critical in giving your employees the freedom to go do the things they need to do. Go on vacation, as an example. I have a number of clients that will tell me, "My payroll manager, we can't go on vacation on payroll weeks because without her or him, we don't know what to do." So that's a really interesting aspect. And the documentation may not seem like, oh my gosh, why did we wait till the end to do that? We want to make sure all the systems are in place. We're leveraging them. They're stabilized, they're optimized. And then we can use that technology to use documentation to kind of document how we're using our day-to-day, how our day-to-day activities are taking place. And then lastly, here we are in transforming. We're ready to transform. Very few organizations, in my opinion, it's about 1.5%, truly transform their business through HR technology. And when they do that, it creates, as you'll see here on the slide, a major league differentiator for you. You will stand out from the crowd if you're able to leverage technology and transform it in the way that which you do business. And it will empower your employees to do things, your administrative employees, the ones that are handling and using your HR technology, as well as your staff members and the ones that are looking at their paychecks, maybe for the first time online, right? That's a transformation. Let's get all that data out from a self-service standpoint so they're not calling in and asking questions. Let's push that data out. Let's leverage workflows so that we can follow an onboarding script from A to Z, from all the steps that go from application to offer. Let's look at things like artificial intelligence. How do we leverage the tool to help us make better, more informed decisions? So that brings me to the culmination and the last client example that I'll share. I don't know how many of you know about Youth Opportunities Unlimited. They're a client of ours, have been with us for about 7 years. We initially started with an HR audit with them at the foundational part of developing our relationship, and they were concerned because of the business that they're in. So YOU puts teens and youth adults to work in allowing them to become economically self-sufficient. So those in troubled areas, teens and young adults that struggle to understand the importance of work, or maybe haven't seen that within their life, and YOU is really there to provide them with that economic self-sufficiency. And when we got there, they had some antiquated processes and a multitude of systems that they were using from a tech standpoint. And they wanted to give their teens and young adults modern day tech to give them a sense of what it would really be like if and when they went to work and got that first full-time job. So we helped them go through an evaluation, and they selected a modern day technology that they use still today for time and attendance. So now those students enter time through an automated form, which was drastically different, paper-based in the past, and a really unique experience because these teens were all over Northeast Ohio putting in their time, working for different clients that had volunteered and hired those youth into their organization. And then it made the processes that much more efficient within the organizational administrative offices at YOU. So it really transformed the way that they serve their customer, right? Those teens and young adults and the business that they're in by providing that economic self-sufficiency. So, which leads me to Willery's purpose of empowering people. So we just recently made a decision to align our purpose of We Empower People, which is around the services we provide. So our goal is to make a difference in our employees' lives, which then they can deliver that to our clients. And then our clients can then deliver that to their employees' lives. We think HR is at the forefront of that. That's the premise of my book. And so we will be donating for every new client that we get at Willery, $200 for every new project to YOU. And we also will be doing service days for YOU to help them attract talent within their organization and take advantage of some of the strengths that we have at Willery to support a incredibly worthy cause and a noble nonprofit in our community. So there you have it, Todd and Mark. That brings me to the end of my presentation. If you'd like to look me up on LinkedIn or follow my podcast for HR Like a Boss, please do that. And you can also find me at john@willery.com. And thank you so much for your time. Hopefully I met your expectations.
Yeah, we've got a couple questions. So first question for you, John. So it's from Evan. And he wants to know, are there any best practices in HR technology that can be used for preventing like type 1 errors and correctly rejecting a viable candidate, or type 2 errors, hiring a candidate who should be rejected?
So the question is there technology to help you be able to screen out particular applicants?
Right. Prevent that.
Yeah, based upon, yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, there definitely is. This is what I'll say to you. You said Evan was where the question came from. There are best of breed technologies in the space of HR technology, just like everywhere else. And there's applicant tracking systems that have, in my opinion, at times more robust capabilities than some of the more general tools. And so if you're not able to get that screen out question from your current tech, make sure you ask them so you can validate it. And then you might need to go and implement a more best in breed, as opposed to these more unified platforms that are bringing a bunch of systems into one, so they all talk together and the technology is merged. Whereas in best of breed, you're really having to use different tools like APIs to connect them. So you should be able to find them through that tech space in applicant tracking. If you can't, please send me an email. I'll be happy to point you in the right direction.
All right, thank you for the answer. And I actually had one. You had mentioned earlier, you talked about standardized is the most, avoided step. And you talked about, so a couple questions I had is, have you found in your history, is it just because it's difficult why it's avoided? And then if it is so avoided, how do you break down the wall to get those to finally do it?
Sure. First and foremost, you need executive leadership support to make those types of changes. So just imagine as an example, the one that's most common is we pay our employees current. What does that mean? Our pay date and our period ending are the exact same day. We don't have a 1 week lag, which is best practice. So if we all get paid on Friday at Willery, we're getting paid for hours that we work through that previous Sunday, right? So it gives us time to run through that and manage the time entry that we need. Some companies pay on Friday for period ending on Friday. So they're guessing, right? Because they have to submit payroll on Tuesday or Wednesday, Mark, to give you that example. So in order for you to change that, you've got to figure out a way to not pay your employees and hold back pay for a week. Good luck with that. So right. In order to do that, you typically have to get executive sponsorship to advance that pay to your employees and then take that pay back over a period of time, right? Deducting that pay so you can create what I'll call an effective or best practice holdback period or period ending. So you got to have executive support. You have to have people that are going to be doing it, that want to do it and see the pain. They're just sick and tired of the pain of having to pay people current, in my example. So to me, real life pain and executive support.
Yeah.
I'd like to hop in with a question. John, I was curious, one of the challenges in particular for nonprofits, but I imagine—
You're a little quiet, Todd. You're a little quiet.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
In one challenge in particular for nonprofits, but also I believe in general for organizations, is that HR technology can sometimes be seen as an infrastructure issue or too much of a pain to change to address a particular need. And when folks are looking at what costs they're going to implement, sometimes I imagine a wholesale HR system change may seem overwhelming, difficult to find funding for, difficult to justify on executive level versus maybe other types of IT and so forth. What have you found to be effective sort of ways to implement the kinds of changes that you've seen? Do you see it more an incremental approach to try to change a little bit over time, depending on what's available, or are there ways that you found effective to get leadership to buy into a more comprehensive and potentially expensive HR technology change?
Sure. And I know you might be asking me specifics for this, but I have had probably 3 of those clients that got grant funding to support a technology transition. So they were able to find funding to correctly evaluate and look at new tech. So that was one. Wouldn't that be easy to get that grant? Secondarily is to look at the inefficiencies that are caused by that antiquated time system or a payroll application that's out of compliance. Also looking at the cost you have currently within those systems. And here's what I would say back in the past would have been like a dirty word is let's redeploy those resources somewhere else. But nowadays, with how difficult it is to find talent, the best place to find talent is within our own 4 walls of our organization. So maybe we could go to someone within a function that's having to do a lot of manual timesheets, but we're having an issue on AR or AP or accounting, and we can have a conversation about, we really need help here, and we're looking to make a change, and that investment of time and energy and their salary could be redeployed in a different place. So looking at funding, if you can get it, looking at your overall budget and inefficiencies, and then looking at ways you can redeploy resources.
That's great.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks for the answer. So we will see if there's any other questions coming in. I know, John, you gave us a lot of information to think about, and we're really excited about your new book that's coming out. And I think you really hit on some key points there. I mean, I was taking a lot of notes over here. We'll see if any other questions come in, but we can definitely continue our conversation with our panelists. And John, feel free if you'd like to jump in with some of the questions that are going to come through, because I think they're very relevant. You just hit on a couple that we've been thinking about, especially with this pandemic and the way things have been shaking out. It seems your pillars, all your steps you went through seem so relevant to everything that we're just about to address with our panel as well. So feel free to stick around if you'd like.
I'm until 7:15. Todd,
right.
Todd and Mark, thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone. How about a nice big cyber round of applause for John Brnitovich? Thank you so much. That was awesome. There you go. So yeah, appreciate that. We're going to then move forward with our panel. And like we said, if you feel like jumping in, John, I know you're for just a little bit longer, but some of these questions are definitely relevant. And we're excited once again to have Candace Benson back. She was here last year. And thank you for coming again this year for Better World Day. And then I'd like to welcome panelist Sarah Bass. Thank you so much for jumping in here and helping us out today. And of course, our keynote speaker from a few years ago at Better World Day, and now back as a panelist, Mr. Todd Birch. Thank you so much. How about a cyber applause for all of our panelists out there? All right, there we go. Cool. So we talked about this. We were going down the path. John hit on a couple of these things, and you just talked about it a couple minutes ago, and I'd love to dive into this. Maybe we can kind of go around the horn here, and John, if you want to jump in. But in this changing world, we keep seeing there's a shortage of workers. And I know right now, as we're talking about this, we're not even just talking about corporations. And I saw down the street, they're closing fast food restaurants because there's no one to work there. And I read recently, it wasn't because there wasn't a lack of business. It just was the manager couldn't take the orders, do payroll and, make everything. So they just shut it down. So I'm wondering, how is this trend impacting some of the organizations that you're working with? And have you offered any assistance or any advice? So I'm going to go with John since you started it, and then I'll work my way down the panel here because you just said it a couple of minutes ago. What kind of advice are you offering anyone on that front?
Yeah, no, it's an amazing transformation that we've gone through. I'll look at recruiters as an example, Mark, in that in March of 2020, there was a mass exodus and firing of recruiters because organizations knew they wouldn't probably be hiring for a period of time based on what's going on with COVID. And now I'm seeing recruiters getting, 5-figure sign-on bonuses. The demand for them is out of this world, and you're seeing it, you're feeling it. Clients every single day call to say, we need help to find talent. And my main suggestion to any organization is to ensure that you're living by your culture and that your brand and your purpose are clear. And if you do those things consistently day after day after day, and you do not waver off of that, then my sense is you'll have an easier time. Doesn't mean it's not going to be hard. Easier time attracting talent and retaining it versus a company that's just trying to chase that dollar and or maybe is struggling. They don't have a clear, their path is not clear. Their service is not clear to the community. So clarity around purpose and living by those core values to me is the number one way that you can recruit talent.
Yeah, I love that. And we'll flip it over to Candace. Candace, do you have anything to add? I mean, what type of, are you seeing anything from any of the clients you're working with or, anything that you've seen?
What I've seen is companies have to rethink this entire process, right? To piggyback sort of what John was saying through your whole presentation is they need to reassess everything that they do. Most companies came back how they originally went out with COVID, but they need to adjust to culture. A lot of people want hybrid models in work environments. So they're gonna have to become very flexible. As far as with the service industry, like the restaurants, I'm always telling people, to be kind to the people that show up. I think that is so important that, and then from the back end, that the employer needs to be kind to the employees that show up. So I go in places and so many people are burnt out. So I don't know. I think the whole dynamic has to change. And because my background lies in tech, as you were saying, regarding being recruited and headhunted. I mean, it's massive. Like you said, they're making 5 figures just to hire recruiters. So reassessing on the inside of all of those resources, looking to the employees that show up and maybe promoting from within, I think would help. I mean, I don't know. We're in a different world, so
sure are. Yeah,
I'm waiting for artificial intelligence to kick in.
That's right. John just mentioned it. I had a question on artificial intelligence. I can't get to that one. I did want to get Sarah's thoughts on this because you are definitely doing some recruiting yourself. So what type of advice are you giving companies that, you know, they're seeing this changing work environment? I mean, are you offering any, what kind of assistance? What type of words what kind of advice do you give them?
Yeah, well, it's funny when John mentioned, you know, March of 2020 about like the mass exodus of recruiters. So, you know, having started my own business in 2019 and really things were heating up at the beginning of 2020, there was a period of time. Yeah, I mean, people were not interested in using a recruiter starting in March. And, you know, there was probably a good 4 months where I started thinking, ooh, I think I'm gonna have to start delivering pizzas. if this doesn't turn around, maybe not such a good idea to quit my corporate job. But I would say probably last July or so, we really started to see things, you know, end of July, August, things turn around. And yeah, it's much different discussions that we're having now with clients. And I have this on a regular basis, which is, you know, the struggle to find the talent and then retain it. And a constant conversation is, you know, what's it going to be like moving forward, right? There are still quite a few companies that, as Candace mentioned, that are still kind of trying to do things the old way that they had done them before. And, you know, people need to realize, you know, everybody was home for 9 to 12 months, right? They had a time to reprioritize what's important in their life. And I think, you know, the pandemic, especially in like Northeast Ohio, the impact, you know, I think we've got a lot of great organizations here, but a lot of them have been very conservative in their approach to their employees, right? Several of them, even before the pandemic, I was having conversations like, yeah, you should probably offer some flexibility to work from home. Nope, they have to be in the office. And my thought was always like, if you don't, you know, how do I know my team is actually working when they're at home? And my first thought is, if that is even a thought for you, then you're not hiring the right people. And second of all, the same people that you're afraid are going to sit home and binge watch Netflix are the same people that actually sit in your office and they're, you know, watching YouTube or they're on their phones pretending like they're working anyways. So I think that the companies that understand that they need to reevaluate, and I know this is a much bigger issue, right, with like real estate and so forth, but reevaluate how they look at their office, make it more of a place where people can come in and use it as a shared space to communicate and collaborate. But the days of you have to be in the office from 8 to 6 or 8 to whenever, and then drive home and get back online, or like, that's just not what people want to do anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a trend. And I'll swing it over to Todd Birch. I know we kind of went around the circle here, but I mean, you're working with a lot of nonprofits. What type of advice? I mean, is it following kind of the same things we've heard from our other panelists, or is there something different you've been finding?
No, a lot of the same things. I'm going to come at it from probably a little different perspective, being the marketing guy. But I totally agree with John. A lot of it stems, I think you have a lot of companies, organizations in general, from nonprofits, B2B, B2C, they have really great stories. And some have a really long history, family businesses. But what I'm finding is that those stories aren't being told. So from a marketing company who builds websites, social media campaigns, pay-per-click campaigns, those stories aren't being shared on social media. They're not being shared on their website. The last section or the last page on the website that gets any love is the careers page. So what we're seeing are a lot of companies. We're actually working on several projects right now for a couple of large nonprofits in the Akron area who are struggling with recruiting. And we're working with the HR team now. So what I'm seeing as a trend, or will be a trend, are the marketers and the HR folks actually collaborating and working together. So it's not so much the recruitment is becoming more of a marketing initiative than anything else. How do we really sell our story, tell and sell our story? That's what we're trying to do, is help these people. The stories are there. It's just a matter of getting them out there. And oftentimes you're restricted by technology, the content management system of the current website. Nobody has the keys to it, or it's old as dirt. So we're building a microsite, a careers dot, or what, a subdomain, or whatever that may be, so we can do a campaign driving people specifically for certain jobs or certain titles to this landing page or this microsite that can tell a very focused story about who they are, how long they've been in business, what their culture's like, testimonials from their team, whatever that is. It's really going to draw people in, just like you would do with any marketing initiative. It's just, we're not selling products and services. We're selling our business to really try to recruit people, at least consider them, right? That's all you can do is get a lead. The rest is on you, and for you to really follow your core values, like John said, and live by them and put them out there on your sleeve. That's what people want. And I think, one of the other trends, particularly with the millennials, but we're seeing this really across the board, the market has changed. The cards, if you will, are now in the hands of the employees, right? Or the people that are looking for employment, new employment. And they're driving change. People want to work for a company that stands for something, that does meaningful work, that's not afraid to stand up for social issues, has a DEI plan in place. These are things that really businesses haven't been focused on. And of course, we talked about the workspace. Do I have a workspace? Do I do hybrid? I mean, those are going to be there, but I think the underlying issues are much, much deeper. Mental health. Hugh, what's your mental health policy? Do you have one? These are the types of things that are going to help differentiate companies, the ones that really make a stand, put themselves out there, reevaluate their handbooks, reevaluate the way that they operate, and the flexibility. That's what people want. They want flexibility, and they want to work for somebody, a company that just does good work and meaningful work and cares about people. I mean, that's kind of what I'm seeing, and that's where I see the trend. But at the end of the day, it's telling your story, and that's kind of what we do.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I love that aspect of just thinking about taking a step back. I mean, taking a step back, thinking about what actually happened, and then readjusting, and then realizing that you're going to have to do something to handle the fact that the cards are not in your hands anymore, and then making sure that you're addressing issues that matter to this changing world. With last year, we talked about social media was our topic, and I remember, Candace, we went down this path. We really talked about that this has to be addressed. Now this is kind of moving over into hiring and how we're processing that. And that does lead to one of the questions I had. I thought about this. Todd, you touched on it, and I figured maybe we can go back around the circle here. But you talked about culture, and you talked about you got to have some kind of diversity initiative in place and understanding how to address those social cultures and mental health. What kind of things are happening now? I mean, you're marketing it, but John, have you seen anything where you talked about your plan? You're going to standardize. Is that part of what's happening when they're documenting? Are companies thinking about? Have you come across companies that are really thinking about this mental health and social causes, or is that just something that is just too new for people to adjust to? Does that make sense?
It does. I just want to make sure. I think you were going to start with Todd and then go around the horn. I'm happy to
we'll start with share. You, and then we'll go back.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I think I have seen organizations be far more intentional with their DE&I strategy for sure. That has been I hate to use the word trend, but one that you've seen way more relevant. I've also seen, unfortunately, we're having to evaluate policies and strategies around vaccination or non-vaccination. So documentation of that. So to me, technology is used to make your lives better, to make it easier. And when we can leverage it, like Todd had used the example of landing pages for websites, it's about telling those stories and having clarity and alignment. So whenever you're going to do anything within your organization, as clear as it can be, as kind as it can be, and as aligned as many people can be to that, the better. So how we can use tech, how we can use landing pages, as in Todd's example, the better to tell the story of your DE&I strategy or your culture or your history. So I think it is incredibly relevant, and I do see a trend in that direction around diversity, equity, inclusion, and also recruitment. Those two things in the last 18 months have been paramountly changed. And I think organizations are trying to find a better way to do it and be more clear to the community as well as to their employees of what that means to them.
And Candace, I know I mentioned this, we talked about some of these social challenges last year during social media, but have you seen any other, HR challenges HR should think, that we should be thinking about as organizations? I mean, obviously we talked about the D&I and, addressing that, but have you seen anything else that either to add to that or thinking about?
For some of my clients, I'm recommending that they, back to Todd's point, use social media more to connect with just the general public. Make it a social platform. A lot of companies are, just posting, company information, but use it to engage and use it as a recruitment tool. So that's one of my recommendations for my clients is that use social and the digital platforms as a better mechanism to reveal the story. Todd, I'm against microsites, but I do agree with the landing pages and also change the homepage of just the main page of the company, period. Microsites become as a developer's nightmare, so. It's a great marketing tool, but I just think social can be used better for recruitment and for engagement. And I want to also throw in real quick is artificial intelligence to be a topic on your survey for next year. Take off drones or Internet of Things, but I think AI should be the next topic of Better World Day because there's a lot of tools out there that can help a lot of people. So I hope I answered your question.
You did. And I know, Todd, you kicked this off, and I can't wait to get back to you. But I did want to ask Sarah, since we were talking about recruiting, and that seems to be a big challenge out there. So, I mean, HR challenges. Are you seeing the same thing? Is that slowing down some of the recruiting process that some of your candidates are wondering? Do they, what kind of culture do they have, and how accessible are they, and what type of factor is that coming in, or is there something else that you see?
Yeah. So, I mean, I see it on both ends, both the client side and the job seeker side, right? Like clients now are being over the top as far as talking about, we want to see a diverse candidate set before we make any decisions, and yeah, job seekers very much want to know what the culture is like. I spoke to a candidate down in Dallas about an opportunity. And she's like, who's on their board, right? She's like, how diverse is their board? How, several questions. Tell me about their leadership team. So, I mean, I'm getting a lot of questions about that. And so anytime I start working with a client, that's one of the first things I ask them about is tell me about the culture, tell me about your diversity efforts. And as we've touched on, things are different, right? So aside from the pandemic, I think generationally, these generations that are coming up now have a much different mentality about work than, 30, 40, 50, even 20 years ago. I mean, it was, I work, and if it's a bad environment, doesn't matter. I mean, it was kind of accepted. Like, I need a paycheck. I go to work to support my family. Like, people have different priorities. And again, that's where I said, the pandemic kind of really changed that for everybody across the board. I read an article the other day that actually broke it out by generations. And interestingly enough, I think everybody kind of automatically assumes like the baby boomers would be the ones that most wanted to go back into the office. Well, this was talking about, based on a survey they had done, that a lot of baby boomers had actually kind of taken this time over the past year to realize like, oh, this is a taste of what retirement would be like. And maybe this isn't so bad. So surprisingly, it was that generation that seemed a little less inclined to go back to the office. But the priorities have changed. I mean, a lot of times, don't get me wrong, compensation is still a big factor for people in making a decision. But it's, I get a lot of questions from candidates who are looking is, what's the work-life balance? What's the culture? What's the, paid time? What's the PTO policy? What's the flexibility to work from home? So those things are actually increasing as far as importance is concerned, if not more so. Some of those factors will even take precedence over, they could make a significant increase in their compensation. But if those other elements aren't there, then people aren't going to make the change. And if enough companies are getting on board with this, the ones that don't will be left behind without the talent. They won't be able to retain their talent, and they won't be able to attract new talent.
Yeah, and Todd, you started this whole thing, so this topic train. But with that, what Sarah was just saying. I mean, your whole effort of marketing. Didn't know after you had these. And John, thank you very much for joining our panel tonight. I know you're on your way out. Appreciate your keynote and joining our panel. Of
course.
But Todd, I mean, John went down the pike. We talked to Candace and Sarah. Was there anything that you had a response of, or anything else that you thought of as we talked about this topic of challenges that HR organizations are facing? I mean, you set it off right off the bat that there are things people have to think about when they're marketing. And is there something else that is coming across your plate? Do you have any other responses to any of the other panelists? We talked about microsites. I know that's one thing you mentioned, but I didn't know if anything else jumped out to you.
No, I mean, I think it really just comes back to digging deep into who you are. Simon Sinek's book, Your Why. Why are you in business? That is the root of everything that you do. And I think people will see through the smoke and mirrors. They want to work for a company that's authentic. And when you are authentic and you take a real look at everything you're doing, recruitment becomes a little bit easier. And I'm not saying by any stretch that it's easy, but it gives you a platform, right? And it makes you feel good about what you're doing and the types of people, surrounding yourself with the types of people that are like you in terms of just your values. Mm-hmm. But the one thing that I think is going to be huge is going to be how we implement mental health into the workplace in every aspect. We just made a small change to our employee handbook where we're allowing people to use their sick time as quote unquote mental health time too. And they don't have to say or mention anything about it. It's just making a small change in the language that you don't have to be sick, throwing up or whatever, the flu. Like if you just feel like you're burnt or you're just not feeling it for whatever reason, there's obviously a number of different reasons these days. Just take a day, it's there, and chalk it up as mental health or sick day. So I think it's just, again, looking at your policies and how you can, be unique and different and authentic. And obviously, you can't do everything right. I mean, we're a small company, so I have to really take a look at all these things, and doesn't make sense for the business. But I think you just have to constantly be evaluating, and more so than ever. We could never get anybody to come down from Cleveland down to Akron. So we have to we're already kind of with the short straw, looking at just a very focused area and how can we recruit and retain the best talent in our area. So yeah, I don't know. It's tough, and it's going to continue to be tougher. And with the smaller companies, it's even more challenging because we don't have the bankroll, as these bigger companies. But I'm seeing the bigger companies finally starting to make changes. So it's the dinosaurs are waking up, and they're realizing that they're losing some of the best talent. So it's I think for the smaller businesses, it's going to be really difficult in the next 6 to 12 months.
I would actually say, and not to hijack your next question, Mark, but I was just going to say, I actually feel like as a small business, you probably have an advantage over some of these larger corporations where they've got so much red tape and it takes so much, they can't just go into their handbook and just whip up a new, like, here's our new policy, right? Nothing in a large corporation moves fast at all. So I would almost say that you could use that as an advantage because you can be more nimble. Maybe again, you think like location, but again, offering flexibility. There's just small perks and stuff that I think that you could leverage, and all small companies could take advantage of to actually kind of not undercut, but take advantage of that larger corporations can't, right? So having that ability to make changes and offer that kind of flexibility and kind of, I think what everybody's been talking about, it's about the humanity, right? Like I feel like last year we lost so much humanity and goodwill for one another. And so being able to just like appreciate people, right? Do little things that you can just kind of that personalize the experience, thanking your employees, little things that you can do go a long way. There's a lot of people I talk to that will tell me their biggest complaint, they're just not appreciated, right? Like it's amazing how a simple thank you, great job goes a really long way, So I think those are the kinds of things that maybe, again, you can take advantage of and to help differentiate yourself to attract talent. And, a lot of this then is just word of mouth, right? Like, I want to, that word gets out there and people start to say, I'm hearing good things about this place, or I'm hearing good things about that place. And I want to work there.
I want to add one thing.
Go for it, Candace.
Location is no longer an issue, right? If we start thinking hybrid, remote, that's one of my clients' challenges, especially for my large client in Yellow. They took everything back to Kansas, and then the pool became smaller because they wanted people in Kansas. But if you would open it up to a remote position, now the landscape is wider, right? So my other client that's in Dublin, they have workers from all over the world because they opened up that hybrid remote model, and now their candidate base is wider. So when people talk about location, I think you're limiting yourself. That's what I was saying earlier. You have to change how we think through this thing. You said you can't get people from Cleveland to Akron, but you might get people from Cleveland who can work from home and be remotely and come in one day a week or something so you can meet with them. So take location out of it, and then I think the world opens up a little more for you as far as candidates. That's all I wanted to add. Thanks.
Yeah, no, I love this. You're playing right into my next question. So it's like you must have just been reading my mind. So Todd, you brought up a small change. Candace, I don't know if that's a small change, but then even you brought this up, Sarah, that there's an advantage to that. You can go in some of these larger corporations can't make these big changes, but you can make small changes that can make a big impact. A thank you, taking a mental health day as now it's just, it's a regular day off. But what about big changes? We talked about artificial intelligence. There's apps out there that can do pre-screening. We talked with John, that came a question for John. What type of big, maybe it's still small, but it seems big. Are there any technologies that either you've stumbled across or something like artificial intelligence? And sure, Candace, we could do that as another next topic in the future. But is there something that you've seen that you're like, oh my gosh, this has been a game changer for me? And I'll start with you, Todd, since we ended with you, and we'll go backwards from you.
Yeah, I'd say for me, I was probably a little bit behind the ball, being quite honest, being a small company and honestly not really being on board with HR 8 years ago. First admitted, finances and HR. I'm a designer. I'm a marketing agency. That was not, but I am, I had no leadership. I'm a solo owner, so everything falls on me. But over the course of the past 5 years, I really dove in, devoted, engaged, and now actually love HR. And I realized how important that was. So all that to say, I didn't really have processes in place for hiring, and we were seeing turnover and wasn't seeing the retainment that I was hoping for. And once we really spent the time to put a solid process in place, and the best thing I ever did, and I don't get any stipend from them, is implementing Bamboo HR. They're out of Utah. They're freaking amazing. It changed my life, as cliche as that may sound. But as a small business owner and a team of 10 to 15 people, it manages the entire employee life cycle. So it has the ATS built in, which is amazing. And it has, so once they apply, they're in, and then everything else, peer-to-peer reviews, goals throughout the year, payroll, time tracking. I mean, you name it, it is in there, and the UI is great. So that, for me, just embracing a great HR system, and obviously the ATS system has to be there. I look back and I say, how the hell did I run my business before this? I really don't know. So I feel like I was a little behind the ball, but if you were like me and you don't have something in place like that, then maybe you would want to think about it, because it really helped change the game. So it's not AI necessarily or something really sexy. It's just embracing a great tool and then training yourself, like John said, and leveraging it. We really leverage 90% of it. And it's changed the way my employees love it. They can sick day right from their phone. They can get their paychecks, their job description, check their goals, everything right from their phone. It's so easy. So it's those little things, that make it. I don't know if someone's going to stay with us just because we have this great HR app, but it certainly doesn't hurt, right? So, Candace, I'm curious, the head nod that you're familiar with Bamboo?
Yeah, I just implemented Bamboo HR for one of my clients. So yeah, Bamboo HR. There's another one called ZenFit. There's like a whole slew. Can't give my list away, so you can ping me. Maybe I'll give you some more. But there's tons of AR software that will save HR's life if they would implement it. So again, that's that rethinking process, changing the way things is done. A lot of people are in fear of AI technology. They think it's going to replace their job, but it actually enhances their job in HR. So I think that's some of the drawback. God, this is like saving our lives, realizing it was like a virtual assistant for them as opposed to replacement. So there's tons, but Bamboo HR is one of the best that I've seen. I also I recommend ZenFits. It's called ZenEFITS. So, but yeah, those are the two that I would recommend.
I'm happy to hear that you give Bamboo a thumbs up. It's just always nice to, I vetted out so many and just landed on that one. But yeah, their customer support, everything is really top notch.
And it has everything, like you said, the peer-to-peer, the reviews, all that is like built in. Yeah, so it's kind of great.
So we tapped into Candace's secret list, so that's good. We
got two out of her.
That's right, for a moment.
Sounds like it's pretty deep though. So
yeah, how about you, Sarah? I know we're getting close to wrapping up our panel here. We're excited, but we wanted to just see if you had any other technology suggestions, especially for a nonprofit. I mean, if you're small and you're a nonprofit, there's, you generally have limited funds.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. So I was on retainer for an agency client for about 9 months. I actually sat through their process of evaluating HR tools. So Bamboo HR was one of them. I was really impressed with that. Workable was another one. And I think just depending on, and I feel like for the most part, those types of those tools, they customize based on the size of the organization and are pretty reasonably priced.
Yeah,
sure. Actually, I mean, I'm a 2-person company, and just from like the AI functionality for searching, we actually got Workable, because we don't, there's only 2 of us. So I loved Bamboo HR, but we don't need the extent of that functionality. But the Workable from an ATS perspective, and then we kind of they even told us, they're like, well, it's really designed for internal job postings and stuff. I said, yeah, but we can figure out how to use it to meet our needs. So even a company our size could find benefit in that. But I will just kind of give a small plug for the fact that no matter, I think, technology is great. My partner he's big technology guy. He's always bringing me cutting edge on everything. And, but I would say there's still something to be said for the fact that like that human touch, right? That human interaction, you still need people. Like the tools can only do so much, but at the end of the day, because I always get candidates that are asking me, well, I need to plug a bunch of keywords in there so it doesn't get spit out. I do think good quality candidates get lost in technology, right? So there is value of having somebody who knows what understands the positions that they're looking for, recruiting for, and can identify that, because again, there's lots of times the technology is only as good as the people using it and reviewing it. And so, like I said, I'm still a big believer in the human aspect of it, as long as, but from an efficiency standpoint, and I'll just add this in because I think this is really important for companies, any organization, is a good candidate experience. And I will tell you, even if somebody's not a fit, I can't tell you how many people who have complained and said, well, I applied to all these places and never heard anything, right? The value of just sending a follow-up, like even for us, right? When we post things, I have a customized letter email typed up for anybody that we don't move forward with, that's, pops in their name for me. And it says, thank you so much for taking the time to apply. You have a really great background. Unfortunately, it's not going to meet the needs of what we're looking for, but, we work on a lot of opportunities. So anything comes up in the future, we'll make sure to reach out. I have people, so I send that out at automated. I have people that email me back and say, Sarah, thank you so much for taking the time to let me know. So those are the things that I'm talking about. It's just the little things that make a big difference that companies can do to differentiate themselves, even though I'm telling them, no, you're not a fit. They're just glad to hear something from somebody and then responds to it. So it's my plug.
If I were to summarize, I mean, I know we're right at time, but if I were to summarize, I really feel like that was the theme of today's panel, was that it's the little things that can go a long way, from just making a small adjustment to focusing that you need to remarket yourselves. You need to make adjustments to the way you're handling some of your policies. You need to make, so it seems like if we can make some of these minor adjustments, then you'll be able to flourish and be able to be a little more positive. And I think that's within hand of nonprofits. I think that's a little more reasonable to make small changes rather than sweeping big changes. And I really heard that from across the panel. So I wanted to thank everyone. Candace, Sarah, Todd, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and knowledge. And we will be sharing your contact information and obviously this recording. So if anyone has any other questions, circle them our way. We can send them to our panelists. And we thank you so much. So how about a nice big round of applause for our panelists? If we were in a room, there would be clapping. And we really appreciate everything that you've done. Wow. So we have a couple more things we wanted to roll through. We did mention a raffle earlier, and we just wanted to let you know we do have some books. So what we're going to do this year is, before we pull the name out and we tell you, we've captured who's here tonight. So we are going to put your name in a random generator, pull your name out, and we want to thank everyone who donated the books. We have, Todd, I don't know if you want to read through them all, but we can do this quickly if you'd like to read them, or I can jump through.
Certainly. Yep, I can hop in for that. I wanted to also do another thank you to our panelists. So quickly, we have a previous friend of Better World Day and keynote speaker Amy Newman's book on simple acts to change the world, 500 ways to make a difference. We have another book by local author Christopher Johnson. I should mention Amy is also from Northeast Ohio. Christopher has done extensive work on domestic violence and related issues, and has offered his hard copy book, Shattering Silences, Strategies to Prevent Sexual Assault, Heal Survivors, and Bring Assailants to Justice. And a familiar name to our audience tonight would be co-host Mark Majors and founder of Leading Hands Through Technology, and a skilled and talented website designer and DJ. His latest work is Make Your Customers Dance. The key to user experience is knowing your audience.
Awesome. And we have one other book on our next page. Evan is here. He's actually going to be in our breakout session coming up soon. We're going to have Ask the Experts. And he has donated his book, Blockchain Success Stories, Case Studies from the Leading Edge of Business. And it's with Sir John Hargrave. And thank you to Evan Karnu. I had this, I had it earlier. Karnoupakis. There we go. Yes, I got it. So thank you, Evan, for donating your book. And we also have some music, Todd.
So yes, we believe in multimedia experience in this interactive platform. So we have some exciting music thanks to our attendee donor, Tom Cornish, a couple of bluegrass albums from a group called the Jug Sluggers out of Minnesota. It's Harder Than It Looks and Two of a Kind. And did I also mention that my co-host, founder of Leading Hands, etc., web designer and DJ extraordinaire, is also a musician. So one of his recent CDs, Sometimes You Just Never Know. We're grateful for all our sponsors. Again, thank you. Evolve Marketing, Willery, and Kent Displays, maker of the Boogie Board electronic writing tablet. All Northeast Ohio innovative companies dedicated to helping make a better world. Kent Displays, maker of electronic writing tablets, has generously offered coupon codes for $10 off purchase at their website, myboogieboard.com. These are tools that can be useful for long car rides with your kids, as well as in your office taking notes. And as you can see, one of their technologies does link to a mobile app, so you can capture what you write. More information at myboogieboard.com. And again, Northeast Ohio company out of Kent, Ohio. Finally, another raffle item, because we are about education, a donation from Candace Benson of her organization CamTech. Candace, as all our panelists, are multi-talented. Both is skilled in software and technology development and runs CamTech, which is an organization dedicated to training the next generation of information technology leaders. She's generously offered as a donation a Box CamTech gift certificate, $50, and a gift certificate of $25 to CamTech for their courses. Thank you very much, Candace, for that.
We really appreciate that. So what do we have next? So at this time, we have a few minutes left of our session. And what we wanted to do today is something a little different. That's why we went to our raffle, getting feedback from last year. And I realized I don't have my camera on. So let me turn my camera on. No, not thank you. We do want to bring out our experts. So what we're going to do is we have two experts, one that is specialized in blockchain, another in cybersecurity. You may remember our cybersecurity expert that spoke at our first Better World Day. Wow, I can't believe that was that long ago, Todd. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to bring you up as a panelist, Dr. Kambiz, and then also going to bring Evan on and promote as a panelist. And you will be able to ask them questions. So that goes from our panelists, that goes from our attendees. If you have a question, and blockchain is a huge, when we did blockchain 2 years ago, Evan was in the audience, and now he's written a book. So it's amazing. And then we had Kambiz that came and talked about cybersecurity, and what a better time. I mean, over the last 4 years, Kambiz, I can't even believe how many things have happened. You know, we've had companies that have been, you know, held hostage, you know, from, you know, their data, and they have to give that up. And then I wonder, Evan, you know, could blockchain have solved some of the challenges? So I wonder here, you know, this blockchain kind of cybersecurity, you know, mashup, you know, is there something here that as a nonprofit and businesses we should be thinking about? So I'll turn it over. I'm going to ask one question, and I'll see if we have any there. And I know Todd had one up his sleeve too. So let's start with that. Let's direct it at both you, Kambiz, and Evan, and we thank you for being here today. What do you see in this arena? I mean, we've been seeing this through the pandemic. We talked about, there seem to be a lot of like simple changes. Our panel talked about, are there simple changes that we can do with HR? Are there simple changes, whether it's blockchain or cybersecurity, or is it really, we got to go all in and it's a big overhaul? I'll start with you, Kambiz.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. I can hear myself loud and clear. That's the joke I heard the other day. Someone said, I said, oh, that's good. Well, thanks for having me. Good evening, everyone. That's a very good question, Mark. As always, you have really good questions up your sleeve. I think there are really basic things that our companies can do that can, you know, prevent this major cybersecurity threat. And trust me, when I say major, as you mentioned it, Mark, the last 4 years, you know, has showed us that we've got more companies hacked. We've got over $2.6 billion, I saw the other day, of our children's information actually revealed out there. So it's just getting worse. I know it's good news for Evans and my work. It's job security for us. The more companies get hacked, the better. So we don't really need to go and knock on every single company's door and say, hey, cybersecurity is important. They know. I think the major problem out there is they think if they have the best technology, if they have the best, you know, antivirus or the best firewall, it's going to protect them. Obviously, it's going to help, but it's not going to completely solve the problem of getting hacked. And that's why I, as a basically associate professor of cybersecurity with my research lab and also at Cyberspara, my focus is to make sure to find ways to educate and raise awareness of our employees. So I've seen that some companies, I'm pretty sure most of you know that, they use solutions that they generate fake basically emails, and they send it to their HR, they send it to all the employees to see who falls for it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. The idea is you're not really training them, you're just mostly threatening them that, hey, if you fall for it, I'm gonna penalize you. Now, sometimes penalize is just you're gonna get a long email from the HR that you're not supposed to do that. And here are the list of 10 videos you need to go and watch. So make sure that next time you don't click on that. We found out that these methods really don't work. I'm gonna pass it to Evan to talk about this more. And then in another time, we can talk about what are the potential ways we can solve this problem.
Well, from a blockchain perspective, there's a lot of misconceptions out there because people often ask me, wait, I hear blockchain's unhackable, but then wait, I heard this blockchain was just hacked. What it really comes down to is something an individual computer has this impenetrable firewall. The way blockchain works is you have a decentralized ledger, meaning that there is not one central repository holding the data or one honeypot, as they say, that can be hacked. What happens is you have all these different nodes that each have their own copy of it. So in order for the immutable ledger to be altered or hacked, you would have to get control of 51% of the nodes. So the more activity the larger your blockchain becomes, the more secure it becomes. The second aspect of blockchain, which provides an additional level of security, especially in what we're often asked about this age of post-quantum resiliency, is that you're not necessarily storing the information on the blockchain. Often you have what's called a cryptographic hash that can validate information that is stored offline, and whether or not that is valid or whether it's been tampered with. And an example that relates to HR is in the area of credentialing. One of the case studies in our book was about a company called Learning Machine that started off with basically a partnership with MIT for free open source software license to create digital diplomas, which instead of having to call your school and then have them send you a physical copy with a stamp on it that they shows that it's been untampered with, you could actually download it onto your wallet, and then you keep your copy there. So again, your actual copy of your diploma, you hold it, but the blockchain has a hash that verifies it. So no one can actually get the information by hacking the blockchain. It just simply shows whether or not you have an authentic credential. This then extended into areas like the Federation of State Medical Boards for physician credentials. And in fact, the government of Malta now has all of their educational credentialing on a blockchain. This is a benefit to employees, it's a benefit to employers, and the government gets this macro level to see how well their initiatives are actually taking place. What's also ironic is that Learning Machine was acquired by Cleveland-based Highland and renamed Highland Credentials. So you have a company right here in Northeast Ohio that is providing these credentialing solutions that are of a tremendous benefit to human resources.
Yeah, no, it's wow. Yeah, it's interesting how this whole world has been navigating, and to kind of add what you said, Evan, and what Kambiz was talking about is they know they're going to be knocking on the door, and there's just been a lot of change. And I wondered, I mean, Todd, I mean, we've talked about these two topics before, and it seems like part of Better World Day is we want to provide information so that nonprofits can understand things they can do, or small businesses to understand, well, we're not doing that. We should be doing this. And I understand that it's not just as simple as, I remember Kambiz, you had like 4 years ago, like, make your passwords more secure. you had a whole rant on that. But I still feel like, is it just back to basics, or Todd, what do you think? I mean, is there something here that we're not thinking about that a nonprofit would benefit from these two experts?
No, definitely. I want to jump in.
Oh, swing your thing back.
Sorry about that. One thing that I think that's really powerful connection that we've heard a lot about tonight, it really resonated with me, Sarah's comment about it's about the humanity. And in John's presentation about the efforts of organizations to recognize, given the COVID pandemic and a lot of these changes, their employees beyond just workers, to really put the human and the resource together. Ideas that we heard tonight, from Todd about the efforts even at a small business to be more flexible around issues. But what's interesting to me is that nonprofits, organizations, we talked about mental health. A lot of these are trying to recognize the individuals beyond their role as a worker, and that starts to hit against confidential information, personally identifiable information. If more organizations are supportive of someone's mental health, the social service agency is working with people who may have a criminal record or may not want information about their mental health history being revealed. There's a cybersecurity component of that, how the information is collected, stored, protected. There's a blockchain element of how, that information can be connected to an individual or protected, like how an individual can carry that information, say, from one provider to another. And from a human resource perspective, how does the human resource function leverage cybersecurity and and blockchain to ensure that the individuals who are have information that is meaningfully kept private, as it were, is, I don't know if respected is the right word, is maintained so that they have the dignity to contribute the best they can to the workplaces. So I don't know if that's kind of a broad way, but I saw that as a interesting connection. As more organizations are concerned and respecting these issues, more organizations may potentially be tracking information that people don't want revealed. And I see both cybersecurity and a blockchain element. And from the nonprofit point of view, they're often the providers, whether it's, you know, getting food to people in a food chain, in a food line who don't necessarily want to reveal who they are, why they're there, to collecting mental health treatment histories. So a perspective on that, like how, as more people are collecting this information, how cybersecurity and blockchain can help protect individuals and give you the individuals the power over their privacy, and what risks you see as more issues like that are being collected by more and more organizations.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Sure, I can start with that. First of all, when you look at the benefits that blockchain provides, one of them is disintermediation. You don't need these third parties validating information back and forth. The second is you have this immutable, transparent, trusted ledger. So it does a nice job of balancing privacy and transparency. Now, when you ask people, what is your biggest hesitancy with regard to donating to a charity or with not-for-profits? And they think that, well, there's all these layers of bureaucracy, there's all these intermediaries who siphon money out, and for every dollar, only say 5 cents or 10 cents goes to the end users. We have a case study in our book. It's called Binance Charity Foundation. And it was started by Binance, and they're really focused on providing services in Africa. And for an example, they have an immutable blockchain. So you can see, you can choose who you want to donate to, what specific cause, and you can see that your money is going to the end users. Also, one of the side benefits of it is that you can donate your money in cryptocurrency. That's why they remove themselves from money transmitter laws. And then the end recipients receive cryptocurrency, which is then enabling them. It's what we call banking the unbanked or the underbanked, where now these people now have access. They're engaging in this new type of economy where they can get access to microloans. They can purchase inflation-resistant stable coins, and it really empowers them to, in ways that they otherwise couldn't be. The second thing about blockchain is that it enables what we call provenance, meaning the complete origin and history of a product. So in terms of social impact, we have another case study called Everledger, and they started with supply chains for conflict-free diamonds. People want to know, are these products ethically sourced? Then they have luxury items where they use molecular tagging on a blockchain to determine if products are in fact counterfeit or not. Third, they want to support a circular economy, so they can track things like essential elements that are in electronic batteries, which would then mean when it's time for them to be disposed of, they can be repurposed for refrigeration or other purposes. So again, these aspects of provenance and transparency and immutability and disintermediation, all of those really support nonprofit and social impact work.
Excellent, thank you. Now that's really valuable. Kambiz, from the cybersecurity point of view,
regarding,
how do you see it?
Cybersecurity? Yeah, regarding cybersecurity, I want to point out something else. I forgot if Todd, you mentioned that or Mark earlier, that we have certain, we call them security hygiene practices, right? We say strong passwords, check out the URLs, the phishing, et cetera, et cetera. Is it that easy? Most of the times, yes. And I'm going to give you a good example. A couple of months ago, our regional hospital here in upstate New York was under a ransomware attack. Now, for those of you who don't know what ransomware is, basically the hackers try to encrypt or lock basically your data that you have in your system, and they lock it. They have the key. They ask you to pay them some sort of money or something. They give you the key. You can have access to data you have on your system. So that this is in a nutshell, a ransomware attack. So this hospital, as you can imagine, most of the either nonprofit or for-profit organizations, they are under such attacks. So what they did was one or two of their employees weren't aware that they are not supposed to click on these. So they didn't really follow the basic hygiene, basic security hygiene, basic practices. And they clicked on a link. You can imagine that even a for-profit organization like that, they're actually nonprofit, but overall with a lot of resources that they really have a good firewall. They had everything in place, but they didn't really train their basically employees that, hey, you're not really supposed to click on that link. The employee did it. The malware got installed in the system. The whole hospital pretty much got shut down. They went back to the paper and pencil for a couple of days to have everything up. But what I'm going to point out is they really have a good recovery plan. Okay, so I know we focus a lot about how we can do to stay secure and stay safe, but I think one really important thing is that, okay, what if we got hacked? What if we got hit by the hackers? Do we have a recovery plan in place? And in just this particular case, they're asked to pay $15 million for that key to be, retrieved. But because they had really good recovery plan in place, they didn't have to pay that $50 million and just recovered successfully. So that's just one other thing I wanted to point out, that, yeah, sometimes it just boils down to following basic rules. And the second thing is make sure you have a good recovery plan.
Excellent, thank you. What strikes me, Kambiz and Evan, is how in both of your descriptions, it reflects the idea of flexibility and resiliency. And the challenge is that, sometimes people want a one-time solution. Like, we just change this once, we just implement this once and we're good, right? And we are in a dynamic situation, nothing like experiencing a global pandemic to recognize that we need to pivot, and leveraging technology to help that happen means that this is a continuous effort. But I find it reassuring, as you're saying, Kambiz, that even in certain situations, the recovery plan is critical. And I think that idea that we can plan for the worst so that when the worst happens, we're in the best position, if that makes sense. And I believe that's valid for any type of organization. And in the efforts around the complexities of technology and so forth, the people at the center of this that we're trying to accomplish, literally the resources who are human that are at the center of all of this, as they learn and become resilient and support the organizations, whether it's remotely or in person, can leverage what seem to be complex topics. I mean, thank you, Evan, for clearly and succinctly explaining blockchain, because I think it intimidates a lot of people, but understanding how it functions and how it's being used is really helpful. And similarly, Kambiz, cybersecurity, I think people know about it, but are also sort of wary, and understanding the simple steps that people can take to make this work is critical. Just want to check if we have any questions from the audience. Or
be any Q&A, but I always have questions. But
okay.
I was looking in our comments. I know we have talked about a lot of topics today, so I imagine our topic train is in people's minds, and they're probably churning right now, because we've gone through a lot. We started with John, we went to our panel, now we have asked the experts. But I mean, the reality is we all have organizations and businesses that we need to continually think about how they're going to prosper. So we hit on a lot of questions, and I wonder, Todd, I mean, we've had, like I was saying from the start, we've had all these topics throughout our longevity of Better World Day. It sounds like AI was voted on, the Internet of Things, but isn't security and blockchain, isn't that tied into the Internet of Things? I wonder that as well.
Yeah, very much so, yeah.
No, we have the first case study in our book, which we feel, the reason it was the first case study is because it had the most best practices of any case study, was called Helium. And it's about building a wireless network on a blockchain for the low power, low bandwidth, long range Internet of Things. So there's definitely a component there in terms of how blockchain can augment Internet of Things. It also is very compatible. I basically see blockchain as the platform on which all these other emerging technologies are going to be built. I already mentioned how it adds an extra layer of resilience in terms of cybersecurity, but in terms of artificial intelligence, AI can make smart contracts smart, which smart contracts, that's how blockchain can act as what we call electronic agents in order to bind people in agreements without the need for third-party intermediaries. So again, with IoT, you can add at a different level of data security to this emerging Internet of Things, because usually small devices don't have that security to be, they don't have the necessary hardware to secure them. But again, we have that extra layer there. With 3D printing on a blockchain, if you think about any supply chain where there's usually one step that has the majority of your expenses in it, if you can somehow disintermediate that and use 3D printing with the blockchain to then eliminate the need to have to transport that key component halfway around the world. Again, tremendous potential there. And I already talked about also with quantum computing, how you do have that extra layer of resiliency.
If you want me to
excellent, thank you. Yeah,
about
please.
IoT. So I'm actually working with a colleague of mine from University of Maine on building negotiation platform between the user and a heterogeneous IoT network. So the idea is, I don't want the toaster and the fridge to talk behind me when I leave the kitchen, because all of these are built with different manufacturers. They have different security policies, different privacy policies, and we're trying to build, as I mentioned, using AI, perhaps, if we're gonna simplify it, that there is on your cell phone, for instance, you have an agent on your behalf that's talking to your toaster, talking to your thermostat, talking to your fridge, talking to your light sensor, and negotiates that what sort of information is going to be collected from you, what sort of information is going to be used, for what purposes it's going to be used, for how long they have access to this information, and with what granularity your data is going to be revealed to all these manufacturers or third parties that they're collecting. So yes, it's a very weird word we're getting into. As you know, we have right in market now, you can go and buy it from Home Depot, fridges that every 30 seconds, they snap a photo of your food. And if you're out of milk or egg or whatever, they automatically add it to your shopping list. So it's not sci-fi anymore. We are there. We need to find ways to protect ourselves from, I can't believe I'm saying that we have to find ways to protect ourselves from our fridge. But oh well, it is. So yeah, I would very much like to see IoT and AI in your next panel as well. I don't know if what I talked made sense or not, but
it did. Excellent. Okay. And so it sounds like we're getting some consensus about next year. So please stay tuned and we'll work on that. Actually, we do have a final question. This one's directed to you, Evan, from our chat, which was basically what recommendations you may have for HR professionals in particular that want to learn more about blockchain.
What I would say to keep in mind is we always say that the story of blockchain is a human story. Yes, there is a technology, but it's really the people and the fascinating origin stories that make it interesting. And we evaluate potential blockchain projects when we advise projects on how to go after the venture capital and angel investors. It's always get your story right. Make sure it's clear who the team is, because that's ultimately who they're going to be investing in. I had already talked about previously about our chapter on Learning Machine and Highland Credentials, But I think there's some other opportunities that you have that you can look at. One is within our own state of Ohio. Doug McCullough, who is the CIO of the city of Dublin, they have a really interesting project going on with identity management. It's called People, Polls, and Points. And they're in a beta test right now, but they're using a blockchain-based identity in order to quickly poll constituents in an anonymous manner so they can get their input into various ideas and initiatives before they respond, and their benefit with it by participating in polls. But I think looking at some, internationally, some case studies that you have, Zug, Switzerland, in terms of they're just putting a lot of what you would call government-based services that people can access on a blockchain. Smart City Dubai is another one. The country of Estonia, I believe, has like 99% of their government functions can now be obtained online on a blockchain. So really, in this manner, I think in terms of there's some parallels there and learning that can be done from looking at what's been done on the government side. And I think that then plays into HR, but that's where I would start, understanding its potential to really impact the HR industry.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Evan. And for all our attendees, we're going to be checking in with our panelists, our keynote, and our experts for any links and resources, and we'll send that with the information that we provide, either linked on our website or provided in addition to the materials, slides, and access to the recording after the meeting. So we've learned a lot this evening. Thank you, definitely. Thank you again, Evan Combes, Todd, Sarah, Candace, and John for being part of year number 5. And with that, I'll thanks again. Also, a reminder about our sponsors, Evolve Marketing, Willery, and Kent Displays. And thanks to all the folks that made donations to the raffle. And most importantly, thanks to you, our participants and attendees who joined us this evening. We intend to continue doing this and hope that this was valuable for you. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mark to wrap it up for the evening.
I couldn't say it any better, Todd. It once again is a pleasure to bring to you Better World Day. And once again, we will review our topic, but it does seem like the Internet of Things is hot. And maybe we can roll in some artificial intelligence and blockchain and security and everything in there and really make it one of those topics that will have you step back. Just like today, I think one of the biggest things I wrote down was that organizations need to take a step back, and it could be small changes that could actually go a long way. And I think we hear that a lot every year. And I think there's some good tips that panelists, speakers, or experts all brought to the table today. So once again, thank you for joining Better World Day. We will see you next year. And Todd, it was once again a pleasure working on this and bringing together all these experts and in making this, and maybe we may have a hybrid event next year.
Ooh, I like that, Mark. And hey, we are very grateful for everyone. I think this reflects not only our ability to leverage technology, the power of our local and regional resources, and on behalf of Workman Circle Educational Center, our Social Action Committee, leading hands to technology. It's been an honor to host this event, and we look forward to doing more in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe. Bye-bye.